What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. In this one, I'm going to go over the free agent and off-season additions made by each team in the NFC East. This will be the third video I'll be putting out. I've already done the NFC West and the NFC North, and then I'll be following this one up with the NFC South, and then I'll move on to the AFC. I'll be making my best effort to get all these done before the NFL draft, so we can sort of cover up every team's off-season ahead of that, and then I'll make sure to put out some videos after the NFL draft as well that sort of touch on which players were drafted and where and what's going to be relevant going forward for that. So these videos are really fun for me. It helps keep everybody fresh and up to date with what's happening over the course of the off season. So it's just a good way to stay in touch and see how the landscape of the NFL is changing over the course of the season, because there's a lot of things that sort of happen that might fly under the radar, and I think it's good and useful to pay attention to those. It'll help you coming up next season, go moving into your drafts. You can see what each team's done. So yeah, with that, let's get into the first team. So starting off here with the Dallas Cowboys, they have made a couple of key additions. They added Brandon Cooks and then Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is more of just a camp body probably to fill in with the loss of Ezekiel Elliott. Now it's still possible that Ezekiel Elliott comes back to the Cowboys. He's yet to find a new landing spot, and he's expressed some frustration over his difficulty finding a new team. I think he will land somewhere, but I think it's not out of the realm of possibility at all that the Cowboys do bring him back on a lower pay grade than he was scheduled to receive before. And in that case, I think that would make him like a low end running back 2 and Pollard like a low end running back 1. If things were to remain as they are right now, I would have Pollard as like a fringe top 5 running back going into this next season. He's just obviously a really talented player. He was great all last season, especially when he got games with 15 or more touches, and he's just a really good player. This is going to be a really good offense. We did see the Cowboys move on from their offensive coordinator and sort of shift towards an offense that seems like they want to further emphasize running the ball. So maybe that's going to lower down the offensive production that we'll see from this offense as a whole, but that should be good for Pollard and whichever running backs end up getting touches in this team. And I also want to touch on the addition of Brandon Cooks. He was a trade acquisition from the Houston Texans. He's a really talented player. He's had no problem finding his way into production on new teams before. I think he's on pace to break the NFL record for times being traded. So he's a really good player. He'll find his way into being a useful member of this offense. He's going to be their clear wide receiver 2 behind CeeDee Lamb, and I think that's going to give him some like low end wide receiver 3 value with some spike weeks. I do want to mention he's not listed here, but the Cowboys did lose Dalton Schultz as well. That's going to be a pretty big loss for them. He was a really big part of that offense, and he is gone now. So this is an offense that certainly does run through the tight end quite a bit. That seems to be a big safety valve for Dak. So we could see some value show up here as a sleeper there. They've got a couple guys. They've got Peyton Hendershot and one other guy. I don't exactly remember his name, but we've got a couple tight ends there. You could take a shot on one of them in redraft this year. Maybe one of them will show out in camp. But it's not a whole lot there in the passing game otherwise. I think Dak's still going to be your low end quarterback 1. They do have pick 26 as well, and they're always a team that's linked to somebody that could take a receiver. They've touched on that. They mentioned how they clearly feel like they screwed up losing Amari Cooper, and they want to fill that hole. So maybe they think Brandon Cooks is enough there, but I wouldn't be shocked at all to see them take another receiver at pick 26, and that would probably knock Brandon Cooks down from being as fantasy relevant as I think he's going to be right now. But CeeDee Lamb's still going to be a fringe top 5 fantasy receiver next season. Pollard's going to be either top 5 or top 10, depending on what happens with Zeke, and not much else is going to change for this team going forward. Moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles here, we've seen them add Rashad Penny as a fill-in for having lost Miles Sanders. They've also added Marcus Mariota for given they've lost Gardner Minshew, and they've lost a ton of pieces on defense. Their defense is certainly going to be just less stout than it was this last season. And I think honestly that could end up posing itself to be a positive for a lot of the fantasy players on this team. We saw a lot of times last season where the Eagles would be up 20 points at halftime, and they could take their foot off the gas, and that sort of kept you from getting some of those just absolutely monster weeks that we could have seen out of guys like Jalen Hurts. So I think that honestly, this is going to be a pretty clean run it back for this team. They do have pick 30, and they've been linked as a team that could certainly be interested in taking Bijan. I believe they have pick 10 as well from the New Orleans Saints. So they're going to be a team that's certainly interested in probably adding another running back. I'd be shocked to see them enter the season with Rashad Penny, Trey Sermon, and Kenneth Gainwell on this roster. So they'll probably bring in another body. If they do get Bijan, he's going to be an automatic top 5 running back going into next season. Bijan would be an absolutely smash spot for him, but otherwise, I think you're just going to see Rashad Penny and guys like Gainwell and Scott and even Sermon be like some high upside streaming options, guys that you could take a flyer on later in your draft. And not a whole lot else is going to change for this team. Jalen Hurts is going to be a top 3 quarterback again in fantasy. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are both going to be awesome. AJ Brown probably going to be that low end wide receiver 1, and Devonta Smith like a high end wide receiver 2. And then Goddard's going to be a fringe top 5 tight end as well. There's not a whole lot else that has changed about this team. They obviously didn't have a ton of cap space to go out there and add new guys. And as of today, they did re-sign Jalen Hurts to a 5-year extension, so he's going to be with the team forever. I love Jalen Hurts in Dynasty. He's got a no trade clause, so he's even more secure going forward as well there. But not a whole lot's changed for this team. That's going to be pretty much a run it back sort of situation. And I think that if you want to look for a big winner here, it could be Rashad Penny. He could be a guy that if he stays healthy could absolutely just have a finally have a breakout season in fantasy. The Eagles' offensive line is fantastic. They didn't really lose anybody this offseason, and if Penny could stay healthy, he could certainly be awesome. But I really wouldn't bank on it. I'd be drafting him to be like a running back 3, and then just hope for that upside to pay off. Moving on to the New York Giants here, they managed to keep pretty much everybody from this last year's roster, so I think they're going to have a really similar team going forward, but they have added some really nice pieces on offense. They've added Darren Waller. He's going to be their star tight end. I think he's got a real shot to be the #1 target in this offense, and that does give him like top 3 tight end upside. I still wouldn't view him like that. I think I have him ranked as my tight end 4 or 5 going into this next season behind obviously Kelsey, Andrews, and Hawkinson, so I think I've got him at 4, but obviously, I mean, this is an offense that needed weapons. They kind of taken the shotgun approach at the receiver position with Crowder, Campbell. They've got Wan'Dale Robinson. They have Sterling Shepard coming back. They've got Isaiah Hodgins. They've got a lot of guys that have shown promise in the NFL, but none of them are true stars. They're going to be looking at Waller to be that main guy, and then obviously Saquon's going to be super involved in the passing game. They did sign Daniel Jones to an extension, so he's going to be there for a while. Saquon got the franchise tag, so we'll see what happens with Saquon. I do expect him to hold out of camp and maybe see what he's going to try and get a long-term deal. We'll see what happens there. If he doesn't get a long-term deal, then honestly, it doesn't change much in redraft. Generally, players that are on the franchise tag do get a ton of work because the team's not super interested in holding on to them much past that. So that would make Saquon, again, a top 3 running back probably in redraft. And in Dynasty, I think Saquon's coming up on that age where I would be looking to move him if I could. He's going to have a couple more really good years in him, but he's injury prone. He's really coming up on that age where you start to get worried about it. And I think you can still flip him for a haul, so I'd be looking to move him now. Daniel Jones, again, he's probably going to be like a low-end quarterback 1, quarterback streamer kind of guy this year. He's obviously got that rushing upside, and he should have better receiving options this year than he did last year, so it really can't get any worse for him. And honestly, this is a team that I think is on the up. I'd expect them to win 9 or 10 games again this year. And I mean, they're a decent team. Their defense isn't great, so they're going to have to put up some points, and he should have better weapons than he did here. So this is just going to be a sort of piecemeal offense. I don't expect anybody to be super reliable in the passing game on a weekly basis other than Waller. And then obviously Saquon's going to be a monster, and then Daniel Jones is going to be a streamer, and not a whole lot else. And last but not least here, we've got the Washington Commanders. They really haven't added much. They added Jacoby Brissett to be involved in a quarterback battle after losing Carson Wentz and Taylor Heineke. I think it's reasonable to expect Sam Howell to be their starter this season. I actually like Sam Howell quite a bit. I think he offers quite a bit of rushing upside. He's more mobile than I think a lot of people give him credit for, and he's got a decent arm. There are just some really talented receivers in this team as well, between Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel. So this could be a sneaky, fun offense. I think you're still going to see Brian Robinson be a low-end running back too. They clearly love him. He's going to get a ton of work. And Antonio Gibson will probably be that third down scat back guy. He's going to return kicks. He'll have like flex value, but be like a low-end running back 3. I still like Antonio Gibson quite a bit, the talent, but I just don't think he's ever going to get that sort of workload that we wanted him to get. Losing J.D. McKissick does help a little bit, but they are also the favorites to land Bijan Robinson in the draft. They've got a pretty high draft pick, and honestly, that would be a pretty good fit for them. I don't really expect them to do that just because, like I said, they're really committed to Brian Robinson. They really love him, I think, and I don't think running back is really a position of need for them. They've got plenty of talented bodies there, so I'd be surprised to see them do that. But I think in general, you can expect to see pretty similar production from this team as you did last year. I think Sam Howell will maybe be a minor upgrade at the quarterback position to what they had, but he's not going to be a world beater. He might have some nice fantasy weeks just because of how good these receivers are, and he obviously offers some more rushing upside than the guys like Wentz and Heineke did, but he's going to be solid, I think, and you'll see this offense be like a probably top 20 offense in the NFL, so they'll stay out of that bottom 10. They've got really good receivers. This defense isn't great. They've obviously given up a lot of yards at the passing game in the last couple seasons, so they've been getting beat there. I'd expect them to have to play catch up quite a bit, and I think they've got the weapons to do that. I really like Jahan Dotson going forward, especially this year. We love seeing these wide receivers take a year 2 steps forward. He's a really talented player. We saw him really break out and put up a lot of touchdowns last season. He's not huge, but he still wins those jump balls. So I do like Jahan Dotson quite a bit. And I think there's just a world that exists where he and Terry McLaurin could be useful if Sam Howell actually produces, but it's just going to be hard to see a whole lot of consistent production out of this receiving group just because of Sam Howell and how. I mean, you got to have low expectations for any new quarterback coming into the league. I think that Howell is talented, but it's just going to be hard for them to be a super elite offense, and that's going to make a lot of these guys inconsistent. But I think if I were going to rank it right now, I'd have Terry McLaurin as like a low end wide receiver two, and then Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel as like low end wide receiver threes. Brian Robinson would be like a low end running back two. I'd have Antonio Gibson ranked as like my running back 40, and then Sam Howell would be like a quarterback 20 here. But I do think he has some upside, especially if he can get a lot of rushing production going. So up next, I'll have the NFC South breakdown coming up for you guys. I should get that out in a couple days. That one should be pretty active, actually. There's been a lot of movement for those teams, and then we'll get into the AFC here. I think this is going to be it'll be good to get these videos out before the NFL draft. Really love making these. I think that definitely paying attention during the off season is one of the best ways to help yourself be on top of things come the start of the NFL season, because you're not really playing catch up when you get into that draft season and starting to do your research. So it's good to be on top of it going forward. I love this stuff. I love making these videos. I understand that maybe it's a little early for a lot of you guys, but if this is your first time watching this video, watching these videos, watching this channel, I do want to thank you for taking the time to do that. Please do take a minute to like the video. You can subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I love interacting with you guys there if I can. If you have any questions for me, feel free to reach out on Twitter or in the comments here. I'd love to get back to you guys, and maybe we could start some sort of mailbag as well if we get enough traction. But yeah, so with that, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.